Good morning.
Good morning,
This is
Russell.
the final morning after of 2023. And it's a day that we have to, we start with a somber tone this morning. As many of you know, Anthony SanFilippo went under the knife earlier this week, or a laser. Apparently it's a laser these days. And he had a surgery, and he made it. He didn't die.
He's alive.
So he is alive, which will come as good news to everyone in the Delaware Valley. He is fine. He is alive. I talked to him last night briefly. He gave us the indication that he might be coming on the show this morning. And about 10 minutes ago, when I texted you guys, he said, "I don't think I'm going to make it, boys." And you know what? In honor of Anthony, we've got the backwards caps on today.
In case he doesn't make it, we want to at least have a tribute for him.
It so was everyone, hurting. Pour one out. Pour out a little bit of your coffee onto your keyboard like I'm about to. Pour out a little bit of your morning water, your bubbly water. Here's to Anthony. We'll see him again next year, Bundy. Huh? See him next year.
See you next year, Ant.
May God rest his soul on this beautiful Saturday morning. All right.
We got laughing already. There we go. Look at this.
There we go. He's going to be wrapped in a white blanket meatball hoagie.
All right.
All right. So we didn't do a morning after the Canucks game. And those of you who pay very close attention, I think, heard the other day Bundy explicitly say, we're not going to do a morning after both games. We're going to do it after the second game is over. But we did get a bunch of tweets yesterday and some messages on Facebook saying, where the hell are you guys? They beat the Canucks. Where's the game? I need my fix. Now, listen, we appreciate the fact that so many of you care so deeply and want to hear from us immediately after the game. But we did decide the two West Coast games, we were going to just try to recap both games together. And the title of this episode is 3 points to close out 2023. And from a macro perspective, Bundy, I think, when we looked at the schedule initially going into the season, and we looked at how this was going to close out, they're on the Disney on Ice tour where they go out west. I think that if we had said back in the offseason or even in the preseason, hey, they're going to go out and they're going to get 3 out of 4 potential points to close out the year against Vancouver and Seattle, we would have all taken that. We might have been surprised, but we would have taken it. How do you feel now after a win against Vancouver, an overtime loss against Seattle, the way that this year wrapped up, 3 out of 4 points? Is this something that gives the team momentum going into 2024? Like, where do you land?
I absolutely think so. I mean, those were two really important games. Certainly Vancouver, when you come out of the break and you head out west, it's kind of, I did say though, it would be the easier of the play if you're going to go make that trip, do it right after when everything's kind of wild and crazy at home. And it's wild and crazy for people in Vancouver and Seattle. It's post Christmas hockey. And, I always felt it was a little bit more distracting. So kudos to the Flyers. They did exactly what you're supposed to do. They got the first win in Vancouver, the first night of the trip, which is a great win. Outstanding goaltending, by the way, both nights. And then last night, just a painfully boring game at times until Seattle scored in the third period. When it was 1-1, it got really going. But man, there was when I say boring too, it doesn't necessarily mean like it's awful hockey. It just means there wasn't a lot of space out there. The Flyers really, really closed teams off pretty quick when they get it. And that's how they've had success. Watching them last night, they just battle so hard defensively, now in the neutral zone and their own zone. But, it was really, really a good 2 games, and it was a great 3 points out of it. I just think that's kind of the way the Flyers have been this year, when they get a jump on teams, which they've done, they've had success. When it's gone the other way, most of the time it's not gone their way. So I think that this was a great start, and they're going to have to get into, Calgary and Edmonton now, the last 2 games in the Western Canada trip, and try to find a way to dig in again. Again, there's a lot of good teams on this trip, so it's a lot of good competition. And as I've known from the schedule, and Torts had said too, that it gets hard. Second half of the year gets a lot harder. So they were prepared for it, and it was a great start to the trip.
I want to know from people out there, if you're watching on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter/X, Twixter, as Anthony likes to call it, be honest. Did you stay up for both games? Did you? Or did you only stay up for the Vancouver game? Did you only stay up for the Seattle game? Did you catch parts of both? Let us know how much of these games you actually saw. I saw Tim Tobin on YouTube saying, I'm giving myself full marks for staying awake for the whole game. It was a grind and boring hockey mostly. Wasn't it? It was, Bundy, it was last year, right, when they played Calgary in Calgary, I think? That was like a barn burner. Wasn't it like a 6-5 game or something like that?
I don't remember.
Something
I don't remember
bonkers.
that one. Yeah, it might have been Calgary. I think there was a high-scored game last year. Was it Edmonton last year? It was a wild one, too. The Flyers won there last year. But
maybe.
I mean, it's that. I don't know. Like I said, like I watched that game last night, and I think I call myself a pretty good judge of what kind of a game it is. I just thought that even the Vancouver game was not like super exciting. Like for a viewership game, it wasn't the greatest game ever, but you know, there are 3 out of 4 points in the bank. Last night's game was painful. I'm not going to lie. It was the second game in a back-to-back. Seattle, they've been winning lately. They found another way to win last night. I heard a comment here at the beginning, a little bit of the post-game comments that Hakstol thought they won the Super Bowl last night. Like, he
was over the moon.
He was
over the moon. He was so happy. He's handing out high fives to any hand he could find. He was slapping.
It looked like Scotty Bowman before he won 7 Stanley Cup.
Here's a little bit of positivity here from Hunter Mikos. A talking point. Vancouver versus the Flyers was a battle of Jack Adams finalists, and Torts won. So let's close out 2023 with this. You said on the Snow the Goalie episode that we did, for those who might have missed it, we did the biggest stories of 2023. I believe it was on that show, and I think it was on the morning after before that, that although historically you haven't always liked the way the Torts has handled certain players, you were giving him full marks. You were giving him a ton of credit for how he's coached the first third, what is it? It's like close to third, right, of the season.
The results are undeniable, you know, whether or not how he got there. I mean, but no, I mean, you have to look at this team has far exceeded anything I've seen in a long time, unless the whole league is just not that good. So, I mean, that's something else to consider, you know. I mean, I don't want to say that, but I mean, that's exactly what I thought, you know. I mean,
they did have a lot of games where they were playing backup goalies, right? But
every team was playing against the Flyers, their backup goalie, for about 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
And so, listen, I mean, he's made them the best part about the Flyers now is Torts made them a team that when they go in and play any game, there's a chance of winning every single night. It's not like you can go out and now again, whether or not they can do that in 4 games out of 7 will remain to be seen. And it looks like if they keep playing the way they are, we're going to get a chance to at least experience that again. You can't look at this team and the roster coming in and who is who and not say that the coach has had an impact. It's impossible. Yeah. There's no doubt about it because he's gotten guys to play out of their shoes. There's some guys we didn't even know who they were. Maybe that's another part. Maybe we didn't know some of these guys like Sean Walker. Maybe guys have improved, you know, like Cam York's gotten better. Guys are slotted better. You know, there's guys that have stepped up. That I still can't imagine what this team would look like without Sean Couturier. But I also think that you know he's been magic. I mean, he's the MVP. He's the Selke Trophy winner. He's been their leader, apparent leader, pretty much every single night. But yeah, I always say, I mean, this has been fun to watch. But what I will say with this team is every single night they play, there's an opportunity for them to win the game and at least have you as fans and us as media prognosticators following them. Yeah, that we actually believe it as well. And that there's no way that the coach didn't have an impact of the largest degree. There's no doubt about it. And the goaltending's been really good. Really, really good.
Yep. The goaltending has I don't know, I think you make the argument it's been it's been even better than that. It's been sensational. It's been arguably the best kind of goaltending we've maybe ever seen from a duo of goalies.
Yeah.
Like we've had this, I feel like we've relitigated this a bunch. We'll probably keep doing it as long as they continue to perform the way that they have. But like when you look at the way that Hart and Urson have played this year, they feel like they legitimately have two number one goalies. And we tried to rack our brains on this one a few press row shows ago. I think you even brought in Fridge on the conversation at one point post game, but like there isn't a tandem of goalies that this team has had in the last, like, let's say 2 decades. Let's just keep it safe, right? Play it safe. In the last 20 years, they've never had the feeling of having two number ones. And through the first part of this season, we're almost halfway through. You're 6 games short of the midway point of the season. They have 2 guys that are playing at number one goalie level. I did see, and it's fair to bring this up, and I think it's something that we probably have to, because when we looked at things the other day, we were looking at a lot of positives, but then we also have to look at a few things that are maybe cause for concern. So Tort's pregame, I believe it was, talked about Bobby Brink and said that he needs to learn how to check and that he really loves the kid, but like there are definitely some holes in his game. And he's giving Brink a lot of opportunities here to kind of play through it. You know, we talked a million times early in the season about how he really didn't seem to have the patience, I guess, for a Morgan Frost. But like he's letting Bobby Brink kind of find his game at this level. That's a young guy. One of the guys who was sensational to start the year, and honestly surprised, I think, all three of us with how effective he was Cam Atkinson, who has also since kind of fallen way back down to earth. And there are questions here. So C-Mac, notes, I don't know how the Flyers are going to keep playing Atkinson and Brink. And then I saw another one in here about Atkinson somewhere, and it was a question about how long are the Flyers is it going to take for Atkinson to find his game? Now, you've had injuries in your career, and you've noted about back injuries specifically and about how hard they are to play through. Atkinson's a little bit different, but when you miss a full year, I think maybe it's safe to assume that if you don't look incredibly rusty from the get-go, that like you're fresh, you're healthy. He played well, and then he plateaued. And it looks like he just, I don't want to say he lost his game, but he doesn't look like the same kind of confident guy and the same kind of confident scorer. Do you think that this is just a matter of his body kind of getting back into the swing of things, of the grind of an NHL season after missing a year? Or is it something else?
It might be a decline as well. I mean, it could be. I mean, there's times I thought he was much better beginning of the year than he's been lately. Again, and a lot of these guys, when you just kind of scour back to when there was mayhem in this locker room, or not the locker room, there's not been mayhem, and just in terms of the team and where they are. But this isn't a shot at anybody, but someone actually just put the name down. But this team has really leveled out and found its game since Noah Cates went out of the lineup.
Yeah.
Like, whatever you want to say, I don't has nothing to do with Noah Cates, but this team has absolutely found a stability in this lineup, whether or not it works every night. Maybe it's Coots holding it all together. I don't know. Maybe it's the goaltenders masking some deficiencies. But I'll tell you what, I didn't see a lot last night. I saw a good checking team that actually looked like they knew what the fuck they were doing. And it wasn't like they were chasing the puck around the zone. It was really, really well played last night by the team.
14 minutes and 20 seconds in, the first Bundy bomb. By the way, I don't remember if I texted you about this, you and Ant, but there were some people a couple episodes ago who were very upset with the amount of profanity in the show. And the best part, Bundy, was one person said, guys, the F-bombs don't help the show. They don't enhance the show. Let's clean it up a little bit.
Great, yeah.
And then the next comment down was, great fucking show, boys. Keep it up. It's like, there you go. The dichotomy of the Snow the Goalie listener. There are a few other things.
Started off as a joke, right? Because I said, I don't know if kids are watching it. I said, I said it last. But you know what? I'm going to be locker room Bundy some days, and that's just the way it is. And
it's okay.
Believe me,
I think it's okay.
That's what a locker room is like. So you want a slice of the room, you're getting it. When those F-bombs start flying, that's the way it goes.
Hey, by the way, you said about kids listening, and one of the funniest comments that's come up, at any point this season is when Allison was sitting in her car and she said that her 5 and 7-year-old got out of the car to go into school and they were bummed they missed out on the Bundy bomb. And now I see Allison comments. Everyone say happy birthday to Susan Lowe. 75 today. Happy birthday, Susan.
Happy birthday, Susan.
That's
wonderful.
That's a big milestone.
Birthday. Yeah, it sure is.
That's awesome. Good stuff. There are questions in the, especially on YouTube here, Bundy, about whether or not the Flyers are going to be buyers and sellers at the trade deadline. Magic Conch 30 or 13 asks that question, and that's come up a few times. No, they are not going to be buyers. We asked Danny Briere flat out a few weeks back on the Press Row Show, which I'd encourage people to go back and watch or listen to. We asked Keith Jones about a week ago on the Press Row Show pregame. Both guys, very resolute and very affirmatively or very declaratively said, we are not buyers at the deadline. Now, we have all talked, the three of us, including Ant, who is not here as he nurses his wounds. We've all talked about what happens when you get to the trade deadline, and if you look like you're going to be a top 4 team in the conference, do they then look to make some kind of acquisition? And there was somebody who threw out the idea a few episodes ago about, do you trade away the Florida first-round pick? But there's like a bunch of provisions on that it could end up becoming a 2025 first-rounder. And my contention at the time was, well, if you're able to clear the cap space and you can go out and get a stud, like a legitimate stud who also fits your timeline, well, then I guess you kind of have to think about it. But you don't just trade a first-round pick to have a rental, and you don't do it for somebody who's not going to make a meaningful difference. I don't get the feeling that Danny Briere and Jonesy have moved off of their stance at all. I don't think that there's a scenario where they end up buying at the deadline, because all of this is essentially like playing with house money. I don't think anybody's convinced themselves that this team is a cup contender. You don't have the previous regime in here trying to tell you that it was a much better team than the record indicates. I can't, I don't know. Do you feel differently? I don't see them wavering from their plan.
So here's what you probably is going to happen. They, excuse me, they should not go out and do something stupid because they built the chemistry in this room. So what will happen here is they're probably going to end up getting Cutter Gauthier after his season. That will add a player into the mix. It's going to be here for a while into the future. Yep. If that's what happens. That will be like a player acquisition in and of itself. And then you get a young guy that nobody really knows that you can go out and kind of play at the end of the year. So you're adding to your core group without really kind of skinning the cat of the chemistry that you've built already this year. People can't deny what's going on. You could take this same team, exact same team, restart the season next year, and they'd be in 13th in the conference. I'm being dead honest. Ask the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah.
Go ask other teams that have had, tremendous, that had a great regular season one year and then next year it just disappeared because that same chemistry wasn't there. That's why you have to find ways to continually make your team better and improve it. Improve it. And that's not a shot at this team. They have found a chemistry that is in the moment. And it doesn't mean it comes back every year because the deficiency is the skill in the lineup. They're winning right now by working their balls off every night. That's the truth. They're working their nuts off. They're taking space away on the ice. They're proving to people what Briere said at the beginning of the year. You can make teams. Like I talked to Craig Berube 2 weeks ago after he got fired. You can take groups of players like this and turn it into something for a period of time. Finding a way for them to believe in themselves and to come together and fuck you. It's us against them. Nobody likes us. Everyone thinks we aren't going to win. Snow the goalie doesn't like us. The media doesn't like us. That's fine. Yep. And that's what they're supposed to do is be professional and go out and compete. We never said that. I just look at real aspirations of what this team is and what it could be. And this is not it. This is not it. Now, if this team goes out and wins the Stanley Cup this year, then we have a talent issue in the NHL. We just do. Yep. It's a major problem. But that being said, I'd have a great parade nonetheless. It would be a hell of a lot of fun. It would be like the Miracle on Ice in 1980 all over again in 2023. But again, I just think right now this Flyers team needs to stand pat, evaluate very, very closely what you think you want to keep. Is somebody worth going with, an extension down the road? Who do we want to target for the summer? But by no means do I make any kind of trade that changes the trajectory and the chemistry of this team this year. I don't care about next year, because this year you've actually found something. And I promise you, if you took the same team, it just would not be the same the following year. That's just the way it goes.
Can we just play a fun hypothetical here for a second, Bundy?
Sure.
After all of the years that we have followed this team, that you played for this team, that you covered this team, and all the different regimes who talked about how the team was going to win and compete for a cup and all that, and like some years they did and some years they didn't. Can you imagine if the one time that this team outwardly said, we're in a rebuild, we're trying to build this the right way, can you imagine if this team makes a deep cup run? Like, just in theory, they don't make a move at the deadline. They don't make a big move. Like, maybe they end up saying, you know what, we think we're going to be a bubble playoff team, and they trade Sean Walker for a first, because how could you not, right? Like, they get blown away with an offer. And they say, you know what, we probably made a mistake by not taking a first for Scott Lawton in the offseason. We're doing a rebuild here. So they don't make a huge move. And yet the team wins a round, or the team somehow makes it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm throwing out fun hypotheticals here. Can you imagine just how weird and how fun that would be? Because not only would it re-energize this fan base, right, which I think is already becoming re-energized, but then you do it and you say, look at what we can build here if everyone buys in. And that idea that we talked about with Jonesy before the season, about how you need to become a place that players want to go again in free agency. If you're able to put together a winning culture team that actually can win a playoff round, or maybe win two, play the full underdog story, whatever gets you going in the morning.
Yeah.
And you get playoff hockey going in Philadelphia again. Isn't that the best thing going forward? Like, isn't that better than ending up with like the 14th pick in the draft? I hate the fact that I'm like moving off of my like tear it all down stance, but like if you're offering me the 14th pick in a draft that like the scouts are all kind of saying is 2 or 3 players and then a bunch of just dudes, or rebuilding the thing, getting playoff hockey back, and being able to show that to potential free agents and flip the script on this thing, maybe a little bit earlier than you thought you could. Like, isn't that ultimately better? I'm not saying that you're going to go and like swap out 9 players in the offseason, that you're going to try to go out and get the best free agents over the next 2 years. But like, I don't know, maybe building towards something is the right way to go. And like, maybe it ultimately does change the fortune of the franchise. And then, by the way, in 2 years, when Matvei Michkov comes over and you're hoping that Cutter Gautier's been playing at the NHL level for 2 years, I don't know. Like, maybe you have the right mix of young guys that have gotten the experience, and a good mix of veteran players, and a good mix of guys that you've been able to bring in through free agency. I don't know. I'm just saying a lot, Bundy. Like, there's a part of me that's getting carried away. But like, I do feel like it's okay to start to think about what does this look like once they're done having this level of talent that's overachieving, and they actually kind of turn this into a legitimate, hopefully cup contending roster.
Yeah, and you can't, like, they can't be, you look at the top after this year, and because I've seen it before, and I hope they recognize it, but yeah, there's no guarantee this team make a playoff this year. There's no guarantee this same collection makes it next year or the year after. We want to avoid the highs and lows, which we've gone through, quite frankly, mostly under the Giroux era in Philadelphia. There was a lot of up and downs. Yeah. And we want to find a more stabilized unit that's more about the unit, not about the individuals at the top. They've done that this year, and that's why plugging other guys in with that high skill level is only going to add to what this team is. Yeah.
Let me see. There was something else here that I wanted to get to really quickly. So people were asking what I meant before when I said stud. When I said, like, the only way that I would consider moving a legitimate asset is for a stud. I don't have a name for you. I don't. A stud, when I say a stud, I mean somebody who's a franchise-altering kind of player. But those guys are so rarely available, and certainly not at the deadline. I'm talking about a guy who can go and lead your team in goals in the playoffs. I'm talking about a guy who could legitimately be a number one defenseman. So again, like, I don't see this happening. I don't see there being a scenario where they go out and they get that kind of guy, especially at the trade deadline. And I also, unless the guy's under contract for 5 or 6 years and fits your timeline, I also don't think it's a good idea, right? Like, again, I don't want them to rent a good player and trade away a valuable asset. Now, if you're able to go out and get a guy who can play top 6 minutes for you that can contribute in a meaningful way in the playoffs and is a rental and it only costs you like a mid to late round pick, and if you're looking like you're going to be a top 4 team in the conference, I could get behind that. But I'm not trading away a first. I'm not trading away that Florida first, even though it's got a bunch of provisions. Like, I'm not doing that.
This, like,
what?
I mean, this is just like this. Has this
ship
ship not sailed?
Can you read that for the people who are going to listen in the podcast feed?
Giroux needs to jump ship in Ottawa and come back home to a team-friendly deal. Let's win the cup, baby. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what. If your name on Twitter is true, and it's in Danny Briere we trust, I got news for you. Danny Briere ain't bringing back Claude Giroux. Not into this team. This organization's not bringing back Claude Giroux. They're not doing it.
There was names floating around like last week. Someone started a rumor, and I was afraid to even run it by anyone in management because it was so embarrassing. Mm-hmm. But I did. And I got kind of the answer that I've given to people.
Yep.
But I don't really need an opinion from anybody. I knew that, but I just had to confirm that.
Yeah, that was when we did the clip, the clip on Shorts and Reels of you with Giroux and Gaudreau. There's just no way.
There's no chance.
There's no chance.
Zero,
no chance.
None.
And by the way, that's also not the kind of player I'm talking about, because that's not a guy who can lead your team in goals, and that's not a guy who I think is a difference maker in the playoffs. I just don't.
Or he will lead your team in points, and
your team won't win
the playoffs. Right?
No, that's let's see. There are a few other things that I see here. Ogie says Briere is open for business.
He's been open for business, but it's hard to do business during the year.
Yeah.
Because it's a contract matching stuff and all that.
Andrew Fawcett with a good question here. Big question is, who's the coach when they finally have the ability to contend? There was somebody wrote a thing. I don't remember what outlet it was. Somebody wrote a thing the other day about they're like listing off potential coaches if Torts were to move into a management role or an advisory role.
It's Craig Berube, and that's it. There's no one else. That would be the guy they'd target if they can get it. They let him go the first time, which was idiotic. That was no one that's here now. That if there's a change to the coaching and they decide they want to, I don't know if Torts would stay here, but I mean, he's on pace to be perhaps coach of the year. Yeah. So I'm not really moving him anywhere if anyone, but the guy they would want here is Berube. That would be the guy. If I were Briere, I didn't pick Torts. I know he's done a good job with this team. I probably have to give him at least another year after this because he's done an unbelievable job. But if I could find a way to get Craig Berube as my head coach, that would probably be the guy I would target if it's not Torts.
It's interesting. The idea of going back to Berube is certainly an interesting one. I do wonder, Toronto, to me, I could be wrong, but like Toronto is always a team that looks like they need a coach and they need somebody to push them over the top. And they always have the talent, or at least they have the tippy top talent. And they do have deficiencies. They have plenty of them. And maybe the Flyers will ultimately be the team that's going to help them fix some of those holes. But I don't know. Like if a job like that were to become available and you're Craig Berube and you bring a Stanley Cup winning resume, I don't know. I almost feel like you have to consider it if you're him. I can't fathom a situation where Craig Berube sits out, 2 years from the league to wait and see if this job opens up. I'm not saying that he will, but I just don't. I can't imagine that that's a thing.
You can't. So first of all, this year you can't ask about Chief because he's with another organization technically. So Jonesy can't even comment on that.
Well, he could now, I think.
I don't know. I'm not sure what the deal was. If he did, I think as long as Berube's under contract, though, right? Still with St. Louis.
No, I think they can because he can get picked up by any team now.
He can. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think he
he's
could
not going to
comment
on a guy with a coach here, though. Like he's not going to say anything with torts here, Russ. It's not going to happen. So, listen. Berube lives up in Bucks County. He's well implanted in this area. It makes complete sense, total sense. He's a coach that guys actually love. Like he's one of those coaches that the players love him like player, but they also separate between what the coach is and what your friend is. There's a difference in that. He's not like a dick all day long to people. So I think that's, when he gets the most out of them, right? Like when I look at Chief and I see like a guy, like how many teams rally around a guy lifting the Stanley Cup up as a coach on the ice and everybody's sitting there as he's one of the guys, that's a special type of person to be able to do that. And, you rarely see that.
Yep.
And Jonesy played with Chief. Danny loved Chief as his coach. Chief should never have been fired. Like they should never have brought Hakstol in ever in favor of Craig Berube here. In the hindsight of this organization, it was one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever seen. That's like having a GM come in and just fire somebody because you needed to fire him. Oh, it's my show now. I'm going to get rid of a great coach. And so what did Chief do? He went and shoved it right up Hakstol's ass by going to win a cup somewhere else. And that's what it's all about. It's about proving people wrong. That was a bad move, the Flyers getting rid of him. Really, really bad move.
Yeah. Here you go. Joe K says, I don't even like the idea of talking about next coaches when the current coach is performing one of the best coaching jobs in team history. That's probably fair. I mean, it was a question that was presented to us. Like we haven't just opted to go down this rabbit hole. It is interesting, though. Like between Berube being available and the chance that at some point Brind'Amour might be moved on from in Carolina, and there are ties to the organization here. I mean, like there are going to be names. Bundy, I think ultimately this comes back to the thing that I rambled about a while ago. But like when you start turning the page on this thing, and when you really start turning the tide, and you turn this thing back into what Flyers hockey is supposed to be, and you turn it back into a perennial contender, then you do get to start having those fun conversations about big-time coaches coming in, right? And like,
well, we have a big-time coach here, Russ.
No, I know.
Technically, like on paper, I know that he hasn't won a cup in a long, long time, but he's done an unbelievable job this year. Like I can't detract from him. That's why I'm saying, like, would I like Berube here? Yeah, he's one of my best friends, and I know the guy's what he can do as a coach. So from a selfish standpoint, yeah, it'd be good to have lunch with a guy once in a while that I know and really like, and see him around the building with a positive attitude. But this guy here, Nick DeCristo, yeah, he actually was a great coach here. Like Jake Voracek had an unbelievable run here. We just didn't have any pieces behind him. He was an excellent coach. And at the end of the year, what got him fired was every player at the end of the year said what a great coach he was. As soon as they do that, the players, Hakstol's like, okay, well, we'll get rid of him then. Yeah, that was his death. They would have been better off saying, oh, he's a terrible coach. Pull like a Jedi mind trick on him. Then he would have kept him. I think he did a great job here. And I don't need anyone to tell me he didn't, because he does a good job coaching everywhere he went. His voice just got old in St. Louis. It just, he's there too long. You got too many young guys that understand it.
This comment is one of the fallacies that exists from that very dark time in the Flyers history. HC says, Hexy liked Hack, lost his job because he wouldn't fire him. It's not true.
Well,
that's not the reason.
So the whole story with Hack, like I never heard of Hack in my life until Hakstol hired him. And then I looked and said, well, where's he from? He coached his kid in college. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want to know how Dave Hakstol got here, he coached Hakstol's kid in college. Okay.
Well, he was also, I mean, in fairness, Hakstol was a very, 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 very successful coach at the collegiate level.
What did he win?
Didn't he win national championship?
He left North Dakota the year to come to the Flyers.
Mm-hmm.
The year he left, they won the national championship.
Well, you know what? He scouted those players. He brought them all in, Bundy. It was his team. It was his team, okay? It's like John Gruden taking over Tony Dungy's team and winning
coaching are two different things. Recruiting and coaching are two totally different things. How many great college football teams have great players but a bad coach and they don't win?
Well, some would argue that that's Penn State, who's playing at 12 o'clock today.
Listen, I like Dave Hakstol. He's a nice guy. I didn't really think he was an NHL caliber type coach. I mean, but what happens is you get one job and you'll retread for 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh, someone knows how to run the bench. Let's bring him in. Doesn't matter. He won two. He didn't win as a head coach. He did not win as a head coach at North Dakota. He may have won as a player, but he did not win as a coach.
He did have a good season last year. He did have a good season last year with Seattle.
Because we used to bust his chops a little bit, Hack. He's like, well, there you go, Hack. You left town and they won. And he'd start laughing.
Dave Hakstol's record as a head coach: 289, 143, and 43. 17-11 in NCAA D1 tournaments. That's a winning coach, Bundy. That's a winning coach at the collegiate level.
What did he do?
They won a lot of games in college.
Yeah, he did. He's a good coach. But I mean, again, why would you? Where's that logic? I mean, where did that I'm gonna start this over. That's just having a guy that you're like, you know what? If you hire a guy like that, let's say I get a job as a team, and I'm like, I'm gonna go hire the coach at this college. Mm-hmm. That's because you know that you really what's that coach ever gonna say to you? He's never gonna fight back. He's just gonna come and take the job, get the money, and listen to whatever the GM says. You know, that's why that's why some coaches, if you look at some of the GMs in the league with the coaches they get, they're not like big persona, big personality guys, because the GMs don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Let's see. He led them to a national championship in 2010, right? 2010, 2011.
Was he the head coach?
I don't know. Stop asking me for facts right now, all right? I wasn't prepared to talk about Dave Hakstol.
Then don't go on and look at it.
They were conference regular season champion in 2014-2015.
All right, Russ. That's
all
enough.
Right. So,
he's a nice guy. I really do like Hack.
Great guy.
Just the whole,
he's a great guy.
Put into it. Like, where did
he likes to go wakeboarding? Wasn't that the thing that Sealski wrote the story about at one point? Dave Hakstol likes to wakeboard. Anyway, this is too much.
We fired Craig Berube.
Yes.
And he won with probably a little bit more talent than he had with the Flyers in St. Louis at the time. Rallied everybody to go. They did. They got a goalie that no one knew. He told the coach, give him a chance. Mm-hmm. They got a number one defenseman in Pietrangelo that had just played unbelievable.
Yes.
And you know what? Things came together. Chemistry.
It's all about chemistry. Speaking of chemistry, somebody did ask where our third member is, where the man who's typically in the middle on the show is. Anthony had surgery. It went well. He told us last night that he thought he'd be able to make it. And then I put out a GIF of the Muppets Christmas Carol saying that he did not die. And then this morning he told us that he wasn't feeling up to doing the show. Now, I can't say that it's because it was the Muppet Christmas Carol GIF. I can't say that it's because he has multiple incisions. But Anthony is okay. He did survive the surgery. And I'm sure he'll be back to busting somebody's balls, probably mine, in a very short time. We didn't mention this before, but it's been on the screen the entire time. But for the fine folks who are listening on the podcast feed or have the show pulled up on their phones and they're going about their day with an AirPod in, ignoring their family so they can clean, I understand you. I feel you. I'm here with you. We're going down to Florida in March. We'd love for as many of you to join us as possible. We're doing the Clearwater combo trip with Philly Sports Trips. The link is in the description of this episode on both the podcast feed and on YouTube and on Facebook. And I think we also have an event set up on Facebook as well. You can add it to your calendar. But we're going to go down to Clearwater March 7th through the 10th. It'll be me. It'll be you. It'll be Ant. There might be some other guests joining us along the way. But we're going to spend 4 days down in sunny Florida. We're going to go to see the Phillies and Astros in a spring training game on Friday the 8th. And then on Saturday the 9th, the Flyers take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Torts is going to be recognized for his contribution to the 2003 Cup-winning team. So it's the 20-year anniversary of that. So it'd be nice to have a bunch of Flyers fans down there to also celebrate and to cheer for Torts. Even though that's a year that kind of lives in infamy here, we still want to go down and support the guy. And wouldn't it be something if we all went down there together and all of the Lightning fans, however many of them are actually in attendance, they look and they see a bunch of Flyers fans cheering for John Tortorella? Wouldn't that be something? So anyway, we're going down. PhillySportsTrips.com/trips/Snow The Goalie.
Torts deserves a congratulations for winning that cup 20 years ago with that team. Be a nice celebration. That was, it'll be a good week. That'll be a lot of fun down there. Spring training. Be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try to pull something out down there too. We'll have a happy hour, Russ.
We're supposed to have like a big welcome party happy hour thing at a restaurant bar nearby the hotel. We'll be right across the street from the Clearwater Beach, so you can go put your tootsies in the sand. I said tootsies in the ocean, I think, the last episode, and then somebody gave me a geography lesson about how Clearwater is on the Gulf side or something, and it's technically not the ocean, it's the Gulf. It's still salt water.
Still salt water.
Salt water.
We did we not answer this question about Atkinson and Brink?
Yeah, we did.
We were talking about them, weren't we, at the beginning?
Yeah, we did.
So I mean, they're both smaller size guys. They're not going to come out of the lineup because there's no one to put in. I said Noah Gates came out of the lineup and things kind of stabilized. Brink, as you said, Russ, is you're right. He's being allowed to just play, which is rare for Torts. And Atkinson looks like a guy right now at times where he's not at the low spectrum, he's not at the high, but you're really not sure where he's at because there's shifts where he's good, and then there's shifts where he just looks like he doesn't belong on the ice. And that's tough. That's what happens sometimes with older guys. He's missed some significant time, and you may not see it or he may not feel it in the moment. Everybody gets older. Father time is undefeated, and that just may be part of it. So, I'm sure if Torts could find it, and again, he's not a guy you can go up to him and like Torts would say, hey, we need to sit you out tonight to get your rest. It's not going to go over well, and they don't have the numbers to do that. So you hope you get the most out of a guy for what he is, and I think that's really the case with a guy like both Atkinson and Brink right now. They're not doing a ton, but they're not killing you either. They're not killing you either. So.
Yep. Hey, here's a good question on Facebook from Clifford Lake. Do you think Coots is a lifelong Flyer?
I would say so. I mean, he's got a lot of years left on his contract. I think he should be. Yeah, I think he should be. I know. I don't know if he did, if it happened the other day, but I think someone said, "Oh, he passed you in games where he's going to." If he did, congratulations. Those are supposed to be broken. And he's been here for a long time with injuries, so he'd have been here even longer. But Coots is a great guy. Love him as a player, as a person. He's been a tremendous guy to me over the years when I was broadcasting, and I can't thank those guys enough for giving me some time. He's a great guy, and you know what? So is Giroux. Like those guys, Wayne Simmons. Like when I was doing that stuff, they were very, very gracious in helping me. But yeah, Coots is a guy that should be, unless everything just falls apart and he gets. Again, you can't keep a guy just to keep him because he's a good guy at a point. You have to still be contributing, and I think the way Coots is playing right now, he can play like this on the ice for a few more years. So,
yep.
Yeah.
I like this one. Frank says, Russ, your credibility is thin to say the least. I wish I were that thin. I wish I were thin. I used to be thin, Bundy. I used to. Then I had kids. But by your own admission, you didn't watch the Flyers-Red Wings game, but evidently didn't stop you from tweeting about what a bad game Hart had. Guess what, Frank? You didn't pay attention to that episode. I said that I tweeted that out while not watching because I was taking care of a sick baby. And then guess what I did? I went back and I watched the entire game. So, Frank, while I appreciate it, I also say, nay. Fake news, Frank. Fake news, Frank. So sad. This was a question. I don't have an answer for this, and I assume that you probably don't either. C-Mac asking how far away Cates is from returning to the lineup. I have not heard anything indicating that it's going to be anytime soon. HC, though, with a good question here about something you're going to be involved in. How's it going getting in shape for the alumni game? If you need help, I've got a whistle and I can be your Herb Brooks again.
So actually, let me get on this game really quick here. I got a Herb Brooks story too, if you'd like to hear one after.
Oh,
I'll finish. I'll close the show. If anybody ever want to hear, I have to tell you guys a story about hearing Herb Brooks get told off. It's a good one. So what was I saying? Yes, on January 2nd, I start my mini transformation. I put on a few LBs over the last couple of months. I kind of scaled back my running, but I intend to get running some stairs and to really start like trimming off some LBs for that game on the 26th. So I will try to keep people in tune of how I'm doing with that. I've told people in my life to prepare for pain because I'm going to be so grumpy because that's just going to, I'm not going to like ease into it, Russ. I'm just going to go for it because it's going to hurt that night. But even Scotty Hartnell, I saw him in the elevator. He's like, Bundy, I heard you're playing. Thank God. He goes, we need an extra defenseman. He's like, I've been out skating with my little guy. And like at the skate zone, I guess Hartnell's going out with his little boy. And I thought to myself, fuck, I guess I'm not the only guy worried about it. There are other guys. When you get up there too, you got to be careful because you know what happens? Your brain thinks you can still do what you could do at 25. And unfortunately, the body doesn't agree with that. So I'm going to hit yoga. I'm going to start doing some stuff. I got to get the hips loosened up, Russ, but I went out last year, a couple years ago and played. I was like, no, never again. Never again. Yep. For Brooks' story, I'm going to leave you guys with this one because I always thought it was kind of classic. The year I actually think it might have been that 5 overtime year. If you could check, Russ, while I'm telling the story, I believe it was. Herb Brooks was coaching that team, if I'm not mistaken. The 5 overtime Pittsburgh game that I played with in the Flyers in 2000.
I'm looking.
And anyway, I'll tell the story. So Luke, people probably remember Luke Richardson. It was an end of a game. And Bob Boughner was on the ice. And I think the Penguins they'd won game 2 in Philly to start the series. And so Luke Richardson hammers this fucking slap shot right at Boughner, like shoots it right at him from like 25 feet away on the ice. I saw Boogie go like, "Oh shit!" He's like, what the hell's going on here? So anyway, the game ended, and there was a big like to do about it after, and the league went up to Bob Clark and said, "Hey, Luke Richardson took a shot at deliberately took a shot at Bob Boughner," and Clark's answer was, "Are you guys trying to tell me that Luke Richardson aimed at something and hit it?" And I'm fucking dying because I heard the media. So the best part was Herb Brooks decides to take a media battle to the papers about Luke Richardson, and he called him Robert Ford, the coward that shot Jesse James in the back. He goes, "There's that coward, Robert Ford shot Jesse James in the back." So. And I remember, like, I'm thinking to myself, holy fuck, like this guy, like, I don't care who you are. I'm thinking to myself, whatever, Herb. So the next game starts. It's game 3 that we end up winning in overtime on an Andy Delmore game. And Herb goes, there he is. Robert Ford, the coward. And Luke Richardson turns to the bench 5 feet away and he goes, "Hey, Herb, fuck you and your gold medal. You're picking up your fucking ass." He goes, "How long ago did you win that fucking thing, you fucking old Billy Goat?" And I'm sitting there going, holy shit, man. That's like hockey royalty. This got pulled right off the face. Fuck you, Herb. Just take your gold medal and stick it up your fucking ass. And I'm like, I was on the ice going, this is unbelievable. I almost felt like looking at Herb going, I still thought you did a good job getting that gold, Herbie. So that's your story. That's your story time today, kids. And yes, those same F words were used on the ice and everything, but that's your Herb Brooks story, Russ. Completely different than the vision you had of the
very much so.
The gallantry and the amazing speeches that he gave in 1980 to propel a bunch of young 18-year-olds to dominate the greatest team in the world. Roshkovsk.
Yep. By the way, TV production guy goes, "My son just asked, why did I hear the F word?" And then follows up, both kids asking about the F word and ass. I have a really quick one for you to respond to TV production guy. So the other day, my 6-year-old, soon to be 7, walks up to me and he goes, "Dad, what's an anus?" And I said, "Well, why?" And he's like, "Well, what does anus mean?" I said, "Well, it's a medical term for your butthole." He starts cackling. So does my 8-year-old. And then my 3-year-old daughter starts going, "Anus? Anus?" And then they start going, "Huh, your anus. Huh, huh, huh. Like the planet, your anus." And then they start going, "Huh, huh, your butthole. Huh, your butthole Neptune." So that's what we've been dealing with now for 5 days. I made the mistake of telling them.
I remember those days, Russ. Yeah, yep. they go,
in fairness, if somebody said Uranus to us at the Press Row show, me, you, and Aunt would all laugh anyway.
Hey,
we're all just kids.
I actually saw something the other day because we were talking about Canadian snow tires the other day, and I know we're going to finish up here today. Have you seen anything else lunicidal coming out of Canada in the last few days? Because I'll tell you what, they did something that was really well needed. Tampons in the men's room, because you know what? You never know when you're going to run out of toilet paper, Russ.
Yep, you can use that instead, I guess.
What? Somebody actually, how about the guy that actually took the picture of him putting the winter tires on the car? I love that.
Oh, dude, that was great. There was somebody who they were like ready to send us the receipt and everything to show that they bought their winter tires, right? Like we had the guy tweet at us that or commented on the last video that I'm sitting in line to get my winter tires. I'm telling you, big rubber. They're after us now, Bundy. We're gonna start getting all kinds of hate mail from Big Rubber. But one thing that we don't get hate from is 5-star reviews. And Bundy, we've picked up a few 5-star reviews over the last few days. And let's see. I think we read one of these the last time, so we'll do this one. Baldo99 checks in on Apple Podcasts with a 5-star review. Hockey's best podcast. Been listening since last year. These guys are so much fun and love the team and game. They take no prisoners, tell it like it is, and give expert analysis with passion of diehard fans. Let's go Flyers. Let's go Snow the Goalie. By the way, in the description of this episode on Facebook, on YouTube, and in the podcast feed, you'll find a link to the Sport Podcast Awards, where we've been shortlisted as a finalist for Best Hockey Podcast in the country. And as we know, if you're the best hockey podcast in the country, that also makes you the best hockey podcast in the world. So if you give us a chance, give us a second of your time, click on that link in the description, place a vote for Snow the Goalie, the only Flyers podcast. Be like Keith DeBetham, who says, I voted. Thank you. I got something I want the fans to check on because I just was watching a little bit of the World Junior games, the last two. This is our fan interaction for a couple days. Mm-hmm. Cutter Gauthier had 4 assists against Switzerland the other day. Yes. All right. Yes.
Far less significant talent than that of Czechia the other day. Mm-hmm. He had 0 points. Do people think that he is a left winger or a centerman? Because a good friend of ours, I won't say who it is, but he's a great friend of the show, and I agree that he's a left winger. He's not a center iceman. And I want fans to have a look at that for us to see if there's any kind of validation to that. I don't. I think he's a left winger. I think he's a scoring winger.
Yep.
So people keep an eye on that through the rest of the tournament. Canada loses to Sweden yesterday, 2-0. It's kind of interesting, like in the way the tournament's going. But I will say, the World Juniors, and we were talking about the other day, and I'll finish with this comment, Russ, since we hang up the show here. But the World Juniors is odd because there's still teams in it that can lose by 9 or 10 goals, which I find interesting, So I wonder if there's a way to trim the fat and to make the tournament less where you're making. I know they want to do like a 4-team tournament with the NHL players. I just hate to see those kind of beatings because it really does depreciate the value of the World Junior tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if you saw this. This is the last thing. This goes off the Gauthier point. So Gauthier has four assists in the first period the other day. Same day that Mishkov returns to Sochi and scores a goal after being out for a few weeks with pneumonia, missing the KHL All-Star game. And I saw somebody who had a handle. I don't remember what it was. I'm not actively choosing to omit it. There was somebody who had like scouting or like said that they worked for or owned a scouting agency or something. And the person was complaining because of a shot that Gauthier took on a power play. And it was a screenshot from behind the goal. And it was, instead of him doing a shoot to pass, he took a shot from this angle, right? Like, and openly complained about it. And then it started this thing in the comments where a lot of people were like, well, he had 4 assists in the first period. So, like, I think you can afford for him to take a shot that maybe he shouldn't have on the power play, considering that he found so much success elsewhere. And then it kind of like started this whole thing. Like, you had a bunch of Flyers fans like saying the guy's an idiot. And then you had like a bunch of people who were like defending this guy as like, well, just because he had 4 assists doesn't mean that he's, allowed to make stupid choices, like where he shoots from. Where do you land when there's a guy who goes out and puts up 4 points in a period like Gauthier did, like was setting up his teammates in great positions to score, and then like maybe takes a shot from an angle that he shouldn't? Like, if you're his coach, are you really going to hold him to some standard about like that was still a boneheaded shot? We're just going to ignore the success that you found elsewhere? Or like, is it a coaching point? Like, where do you land?
I'm okay sometimes with it. Guys are going to miss the net sometimes, as much as I hate it, but I am okay with a guy like that. He's got a very, very good shot. Mm-hmm. I'm okay for that, in terms of missing it sometimes. You're trying to see if you see some traffic or you see something in a spot, but he'll learn more as he gets here too. It'd be interesting. He does have a really good release. again. So I don't think we give him maybe as much credit as we do when we see Michkov. But one of the things I wanted to see Gauthier do this year, though, was really dominate a couple of good teams in this tournament, like really, really good teams. And last year, I don't want to say a bad tournament. He didn't have a bad tournament, but he didn't have one where you could say you're going in the NHL next year to be a top line guy if you didn't dominate the World Juniors. So again, I'd like to really see him take a huge bite of an apple against one of these really, really good teams. But certainly a guy with a lot of skill and a guy who can get his shot off quickly and adds a little bit of size. I don't know how physical he is per se all the time. Someone mentioned a John LeClair. John LeClair wasn't physical, like in terms of, but you couldn't move him in front of the net or the corners. He could hold on to the puck. That's what I think of when I think of physical. And certainly LeClair fits that bill. If this kid turns out to be 2/3 of that, that'd be a huge win.
Yeah, agree. 100%. Anthony Louie here with the final comment. If Gauthier ends up being the next John LeClair instead of next Leon Draisaitl, no one will complain. That's exactly right. That's a good way to end. I know that I've said a few times, Flyers closing out the year. They play tomorrow. They technically play on New Year's Eve. They play 8 o'clock against Calgary. I don't know if you have a prediction. Actually, no, don't give your prediction. We'll do the prediction. We'll put them out on Twitter tomorrow, right before the game starts. I will note that I sent my prediction to you and Ant ahead of time 2 games ago, and then yesterday Ant got the jump on me and sent over the prediction.
By the way, how are the scores? How are the scores last 2 games going?
I forgot to take. I don't have the updated standings in front of me.
2-0 right here.
You went 2-0?
Yeah.
Good on you.
Picked Flyers against Vancouver and Seattle last night, but just because Seattle had been rolling, the Flyers would be a little bit road tired.
I took Seattle last night, didn't I? I think
that's probably because I picked first and you just copied me.
Why are you like this? Why? Stop. You.
Where's our baby New Year? Is he going to be back for our post?
That was the comment that I wanted to roll out of here with. It was about intern Andrew, wherever he is right now. Shoot. I don't know if I'm going to find it here in time. But there was a question about intern Andrew if he was going to dress up as Father Time for New Year's. And I think that instead of him dressing up as Father New Year's, I think he needs to dress up like the New Year's baby. And we'll add that to the calendar.
That would be actually perfect. We have Andrew dress up like Baby New Year. Russ, get him paid there too, all right?
We'll make sure that we'll get him reimbursed for the elf costume. So anyway, it's time for us to roll out. Remember, go to phillysportstrips.com/strip/Snow The Goalie. Sign up. Join us in March in sunny Florida. Philly spring training. Flyers versus Lightning. Back-to-back days. Big meet and greet. Big party. It'll be a lot of fun. And give us a vote for Best Hockey Podcast. That's down in the description of the episode. So for Bundy, you can find on Twitter at Therien6. I'm Russ at Joy on Broad. For Anthony, wherever he is, at Ant SanFilippo. Everybody have a very safe, and we will once again highlight safe, New Year's Eve. Enjoy your New Year's Day. Get a little bit of hockey here on New Year's Eve to lead you up to the ball dropping. And we're looking forward to a very exciting 2024. And we said this the other day, but a big thank you to everybody who listens and watches this show. We do truly appreciate each and every one of you. We couldn't do it without you. So, time to roll out. Everybody have a very happy New Year, and we will talk to you in 2024. Bye-bye.